What is up, guys? Welcome to episode 5 of Straight to the Kokoro. I'm joined by my good friend, Ricky Mitra. Ricky works in pharmaceutical sales, is also a strength coach on the side, and currently is a blue belt in karate pursuing his black belt. Thanks for joining me, Ricky.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm happy to be here and appreciate you asking me to come on here.
Yeah, I know we've always kind of talked about like Dragon Ball Z is something super close to you, and I know you're one of the few people I know that's like read the manga too. So like you're further than where they ended in like Super, which is the last thing I know that came out. Well, then they had Heroes, I think.
Yeah, I haven't kept up with the manga in a very long time just because life got busy and stuff like that. But now there's so many different spin-offs, it's a little confusing. Like Heroes is like pretty much like your alternate double alternate universe where like all the rules of the series are just broken. But Super, I've been like kind of keeping up with highlights of. I haven't read in a while, but still keep up with it.
So for you, what is Dragon Ball to you that really keeps you engaged with it? Like when you go through reading it or watching it, like what's that like for you from an experience standpoint?
It's very nostalgic for me because, and I can further explain this later in context, so like people and you can understand why, but it's like Dragon Ball was a huge part of my childhood. And I like as a kid, I was very people would say I'm like timid or like gentle, and like and Dragon Ball for me was kind of like what kind of gave me this like framework of like building some form of like self-confidence actually as a kid.
What was the thing, like what part of it was that you felt helped you build that self-confidence, if you can recall?
It was so number one, I would say like, so as a kid who was like more on the timid side, on the gentle side, it was almost like an escape for me from like the daily life of just like going to school, trying to act like, I'm trying to make all these friends and stuff like that. And Dragon Ball was one of those things that was like a total disconnect from the world. And then I'm watching this guy, Goku in particular, like stand up for himself, not take no for an answer. And he, as many times as he gets the absolute shit kicked out of him, he comes back up each time and doesn't take that for an answer and just keeps pushing forward. And that was something that I guess I wanted for myself. Right. So then I think that's what kind of grasped me into the series as a whole, you know?
No, yeah. When I hear that, I think like it was inspiring for you
Yeah.
in that sense. And it was like you said, it was something you wanted to embody yourself. And then off of that kind of like, I feel like in some ways what I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, like it gives you some sense of like motivation and inspiration in terms of like how you wanted to kind of change the way you were, like being more timid, which I resonate with because I was super quiet till about junior year of high school, I feel like. So I had a long
Yeah,
time.
no, and I'm sure like everyone's got some sort of story, where they can connect to certain things for different instances. But I think so for myself, to go a little bit deeper, like I always wanted to be athletic, but athletics was never a gift for me that came naturally. Get it? You get what I mean? So
Oh yeah.
on top of being like timid, people like, I don't know, people would say I was like super quiet, nice. I was always picked last in gym class too, just because I just sucked at being athletic for a very long time. And so, I guess, what Dragon Ball did for me is, one, it sparked my interest in the martial arts game, because I was like, well, this is really cool. Like, like what's this martial arts stuff people talk about all the time? And like, what is it exactly? And like kind of diving into like Japanese culture, which, I've really grown to love. And on top of that, it was just watching like these characters and the development of these characters that like I saw that helped me kind of like build myself up. Like, for example, I think my grittiness and like the gritty attitude I have of just like not taking no for certain things and always trying to like push myself to like the next level of whatever it is I'm trying to do. I think it all sparked from watching kind of Goku kind of grow through this series as a kid.
I feel that. I think there are a few like shows, whether it be anime or like movies and stuff like that really have someone get the living shit beat out of them more than like I feel like anime just does it really well. Like Goku's died God knows how many times at this point. Like
Right.
even
And
others. Oh, go.
oh no, I was gonna say, and on top of that, like there's other messages that like were through there. Like, for example, like putting others before you put yourself. And like he always did that through the series, and a lot of the other characters did too. And like, like don't stand down, or like, if you want something, like go to that, like do everything you possibly can to get yourself to that next level. So it was stuff like that that really kind of like got me into that show.
I feel that. I know that's like one of the shows that's super big in like lifting culture too, though. Because there are like all the shirts like training to be like Goku. There's all the
Yeah, dude. Now you
like
got
its own.
Under Armour with Saiyan print on it, like Vegeta's like
Oh, I've seen.
print on it, and like it's been a huge part of like even in our lifting culture with our like strength friends, like super. It's in there, it's everywhere.
I think that's one of the more mainstream ones that people know too. Like
Right.
because DBZ is so old relative to other stuff, or yeah, when it was just Dragon Ball before it was even like Z or any of that stuff.
Right.
So I know you did karate at one point, right? Growing up too.
Yeah. So after getting into like Dragon Ball and like watching about martial arts and stuff like that, I went to Taekwondo, uh got my black belt. But at that point, I think, I was so young. I got my black belt in Taekwondo when I was like in 7th or 8th grade. So it was great and I loved it, but I think I was a little too young to really appreciate it. So, and then, a couple of years passed. I wrestled in high school, wrestled in college, and over 2020, I really wanted to get back into like the martial arts game. And another thing, and a part of from Dragon Ball that was a huge part of my childhood and growing up was the Karate Kid. So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna find like a really traditional sensei, like that teaches like the real karate, that it was meant for back in Okinawa. And then here I am, like 2 years into it now.
So what's like your current goal with like your training in karate now? Do you want? I know you had planned to do a competition in the past. Do you still want to
Yeah.
do a competition?
Yeah, so I do the more like practical stuff on like as a whole to like train to like, for the more practical sense of karate. Because I think like what happened over the years is it got too over heavily systemized into like schools. And like it almost got watered down a little bit. So the stuff I learned now is like the roots of it from when it was first built. So that's something I really appreciate. And I just picked up the sport end of it just to get more exposure to different elements. I did a competition back in February. It didn't go according to plan because I got DQ'd for excessive contact.
Right.
So certain things to work on, like being able to control like the rate of how hard you're hitting something is definitely another factor. And so I'm just now I guess I'm on top of the practical stuff. I'm still doing some of the sport variations of it just to learn, just to keep learning.
What are the differences between like the sport and the practical parts of it?
So the practical parts of it is karate is actually a very close contact martial art. So in sport you start about 6 feet away from each other and you square up and you're bouncing around to just land a point. So like, any kick to the head is 3, to the body is 2. And same thing for a punch to the head is like 2, punch to the body is 1, but in terms of points. And it's more so like, for sport where you're trying to like bait your opponent and square up. Meanwhile, like the karate, what it's used for was, civilian self-defense. It's very close contact. There's a lot more grappling, throwing, joint manipulating, and a lot of close range strikes that people wouldn't really think about actually.
Interesting. Okay. It's even with the throwing and the grappling, it sounds like it's closer to me as someone who's like done jujitsu really briefly and Muay
Yeah,
Thai. It sounds like it's closer to that than when I initially think of, especially like Tiger Schulman's, like people just
Yeah,
splitting boards or hitting things like that. Like there's more of that, like you said, grappling component to it. I think I'll categorize it as.
right. So for example, like I'll like so people say that this whole like reciprocal motion of like this hand pulling back is for power generation. And that's what it's been said for years. But actually, this is pulling a limb and then striking with the other hand.
Yeah, because what are you're driving rotation probably like through that.
Yes. So this is actually a pulling motion. So anytime someone does like this thing or something similar to that, this hand that pulls down and back, you're grabbing something physically.
Do you have gi? You have gis in karate, right? Or it's probably not called a gi, I'm assuming.
It's a gi. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a
So can
gi.
you can grab, I'm assuming, a gi? Because I remember from
Yeah.
jujitsu, like rolling with a gi, you could always use that as leverage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of times, like if someone's coming off a hook, you trap the arm, pull it in, and then blocks are actually strikes. That's another principle I learned too.
Interesting.
So like something like this is like a strike to someone's neck than it more so than you're trying to block something. So it's like principles like that I've been learning. That's been incredible.
Very cool. And what's it like having compared to like your upbringing with karate, what's taekwondo, what's it like having now a way more traditional sensei in the sense of having that teaching experience? Because I've seen some of your like clips on IG and it looks like very formal, like closer to the tradition.
Yeah, I think what number one, what helps is like how I can compare my sensei to is, how we have people in the lifting industry, like the strength and conditioning industry, that really just devote their time, their heart, their everything into really kind of promoting this, like the bigger picture, right? And I would say like my sensei does the same like that in terms of karate. Like he devotes his like free time, he devotes his like everything, heart and soul goes into understanding like the old school Okinawan self-defense arts, which is something like I really appreciate out of him. And he's super, super invested in like everyone's growth as a martial artist. So he's also a really great mentor in terms of like just growing as a martial artist as well.
That's awesome. No, it's not. He's like all in. I know exactly the kind of the person you're describing. I feel like the first person that always comes to my mind whenever we talk about like the lifting stuff is just Ryan. But like Ryan's in a class by himself because he's just having such a good time with it.
Yeah. Just like exactly. And like Ryan's another one. Like if you want to get huge and just want to get shredded, like Ryan will be there for you in a second. But yeah, I got really lucky. I got a sensei who like really embodies what it means to be like a good sensei to somebody.
Do you at some point ever want to teach or kind of take that on if you get far enough?
If I get far enough, yeah. There's so much learning and like understanding principles. It's like it's a definitely like every day is definitely like a learning process. And maybe one day, yeah, I would.
Nice, very cool.
Nice, yeah.
So in terms of like your training, because we both love to mash weights, and like I feel like that's another thing you can definitely take from Dragon Ball too, is just like the grit of training and the grind of training.
Yeah,
So like
man.
what's your current training kind of like? I know we talked probably a couple of months ago, and it was more
Yeah.
being able to get better at your kicks was like the main thing at the time.
Right. So pretty much like I had to do like a whole shift around, right? So I was doing the whole like get as strong as possible, get as huge as possible at all costs possible for like years, right? And then now, with the help of Justin, who's been an incredible coach, like really kind of helping me and guide me along this process of like, getting a little more bouncy, getting a little more fluid, some rotation. So a lot of it is just like a lot of rolling patterns, arm bars, and yielding, trying to promote like yielding at the tissue, and a lot more reciprocal alternating movements and controlling center of mass, foot contacts, stuff like that.
Is it enjoyable at all, or is it still like, God, I hate fucking split squats?
It's definitely enjoyable. It's enjoyable. It's also, but every day is like another learning curve, right? Like split squats have definitely got better. Um, but it takes practice, man. Like, being able to maintain foot contacts and control center of mass, every day is a work in progress. But you start to see, once you start kind of seeing like the fruits of your labor after a while, like it's very rewarding, I would say.
I feel like I just always developed such a love-hate relationship with certain things like split squats, where it's like they're incredibly worth it, right? Because you definitely do see a difference and they work super well for very specific things. But it's just like, this is fucking terrible. And I don't think they get any better. At least they've never gotten any better for me. And it's been like 4 or 5 years of doing them.
It almost feels like the better you get at them, the harder they get at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's, and being like a wide ISA with like a left, or like being on like a right oblique axis, the struggles are just like on your left side, like left hip ER is like non-existent. So that's always just like trying to open that side up as well.
Yeah, I feel like it gets harder as you've obviously, like, you have a good amount of mass more than me. And it's like the more you get, the less mobile you obviously get to a large degree.
Right.
It's like where's the middle?
What's up?
I said it's like where's the middle, right? Like
Right.
where you could do enough stuff, but you're still not like locked. Like that's how I felt when we were peak training during COVID.
Oh yeah, because you and I were just crushing bilateral lifting to
Yeah.
like the highest degree possible.
I literally felt like an alligator. Like all the spread stuff was good, but like any of the shuffle stuff was like okay. And then anything that wasn't deadlift, I was just like, this is terrible.
It's crazy though, man. Cause like even when you unlock a little bit of rotation, like it goes a long way, man. Like
Oh
a
yeah.
long way. Like you feel it a lot better, you know. And no, I'm super thankful that he's been super patient too with me as a coach and just like working with me day by day. Cause sometimes I'll just text him, I'll be like, I'm never gonna get this. Like, this is so hard. He's like, just keep working.
Well, Justin's really like, was Justin your first mentor? What did you say?
Yeah. He's probably like, with like he was my first mentor, and also he's like the reason that like I set out to be the type of coach that I did. Was I credit all of that to him and Sean. They played a huge role in like my like pursuit as a coach. So
Did you meet both of them through Parabolic where you used to work?
I did, yeah. Actually, like Justin was actually, I was a client at Parabolic, and he was my first ever coach. And then so that turned out from him being like my direct coach to me interning with him, and then working with him, being friends with him, and now and the whole mentorship and everything like that. So it's been, I think it's been like, what is it, 2022? Yeah, like 8 years. I've known him for like 8 years now.
Holy crap, very cool. I didn't know you started out as a client. I thought it was when you had started interning at Parabolic.
Oh no, man. I started off as a client.
What did you go to him for initially?
So I was wrestling at school, and I needed like a place to train pretty much. And I had a coach back home, but he shut his gym down. So and that exposure, like my first exposure was like a lot of like the West Side stuff. And then, I was like, oh, cool. Like, let me check out this place, Parabolic, on campus. Like, I'm here all day. Like, I might as well like check it out. And so I got into like them. And then, kind of that's where it all started. That's where I took my first 90/90, man.
Was that the triphasic stuff too?
I did triphasic while I was interning. Yeah, that was like later.
Okay. I remember you telling me like this is terrible. And it was like, yeah, it's like it robs you of everything.
Yeah, triphasic was hard, man. Like, cause you're doing like super maximal loading followed by like plyometrics.
Yeah, I've never done it. I know like some of Cal's stuff off the top of my head, but every time I've seen it, I'm just like, I'm not good at plyometrics, so I'm probably not going to do this. And
Yeah.
I have no desire at the moment to do a lot of that.
So you pretty much do like a 1 rep of a heavy lift, rest for like, I forget what the rest was, but you take a short rest, do another rep. And then after that rep, you do like an assisted plyo, a weighted plyo, and like a body weight plyo pretty much.
I've seen some people implement it, I think, with like band resisted jump, then like non-band resisted jump, and some weight stuff too mixed in there.
Yeah, and then an assisted jump. So it was great. You know, when you talk about like being young training age, like really learning what it's like to grind through sets, like that'll do it, man.
I feel like that's one of the hardest things I think even I see with clients and like with myself, right? Is like a 30-30, if well, eventually it's going to get you there because you're going to have to keep progressively overloading, right? But like to know what it's like to fully put your floor, like your foot to the floor with the gas pedal and like how terrible it feels. But at the same time, I feel like that for me, right, helped me know how much harder I could push myself even when I thought I was at my like limit, air quotes. Like
Dude,
of like 70%. And that's not a load in terms of like mental capacity of what I was thinking I was feeling.
and the 30-30 is like another reason of just like straight up grinder. Like last year when I was doing like when I was working with Ryan on like getting leaner, it was like I think like in our second or third block like phase, he gave me a 30-30 day. And it was like, I think it was like Monday actually. Monday was like 30-30 day. And it was like, you know, your bench, a deadlift, squat, um, not bilateral squat. It was like a rear foot elevated split squat on one
Works.
side, right, left, chest supported rows. And like I remember it was like my fourth round into that 30-30, and I just like puked my brains up at Whippany Athletic.
Have you ever thrown, did you ever throw up or anything?
Yeah, I did. I
Oh,
did. It was
yeah.
that day. I like had a lot of caffeine prior. I didn't eat that much. And I was just like trying to get it the 30-30 out of the way before I go to work. And I just like yacked my brains up in the garbage can.
So I never threw up, but I remember I almost passed out like a few times. Like I figured out that like you couldn't stop moving after you did them. Like I
Yeah.
used to finish my like third round of a 30-30 and I'd be like, okay, I'm done. I would just go sit down and then like all the blood would pool, I guess. And like there was no transition. Like if you were sprinting on a treadmill, then you obviously go to like, you just get off. Like you had no cool down transition. So I would just stop. And I just remember like this heaviness hitting me. And I was like, I literally can't drive right now. Like I can't do anything right now.
I know, man. And it was just like, it's always at that time too. Like, I remember I immediately puked and I was just like, trying to like grasp what's going on for a second. And like, of course, one person wants to like come up and have a conversation like right after I just finished puking. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know where I am right now. Just give me a second.
I feel like what I would have is I would have that, and then I would like kind of respring, get the endorphin rush, and I was like, holy shit, I could run for president right now. Like I would just feel so ridiculously good.
I know that it's like it's so funny. It's like a love hate with those things.
I think the worst mistake I made though is I did a 20-40 right before getting tattooed on my arm.
Yeah.
And I remember like I just fried my nervous system and he was like, did you work out before you like I was like, yeah, I just crushed this workout. He's like, dude, he's like, why would you do that? We're about to get tattooed for like 5-6 hours. It was like, oh God. He's like you
Yeah.
just like took all your endorphins.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was a painful session.
I remember telling Ryan, I was like, I just puked and it kept going. He's like, love to hear that.
Well, didn't he say he's like, I would have just left?
Yeah, he said he's like, dude, you're sick. I love it. I was
I mean,
like,
I think, yeah, I remember what was 2015 Nationals. This dude was squatting I don't remember what attempt it was in powerlifting, but he was coming up and he literally got stuck and then started vomiting as he still kept coming up. And the announcer's like, if you're like if you're not leaving bodily fluid on the platform, you're not doing it right. And we were
right.
just like, oh, we don't know about that. But it was like, I was amazed. It was like, well, we finished the fucking lift. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
man.
know if I could do that while throwing up.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm trying to think. Outside of like training, like what do you generally enjoy? Like you have karate, obviously, outside of pharmaceutical work that you do. You train a
Right.
couple people on the side. And then like what else do you enjoy doing in your free time?
I enjoy reading for sure. I just got back into like reading a lot more things, and I think I like reading a lot of stuff on um like psychological things almost. Like for example, there's this writer who's also martial arts, Jeff Thompson. He wrote a book on fear, and like what fear is exactly, and like, you know, the ways to, so pretty much the book goes into that fear is actually adrenaline, and you know your body goes into this like flight or flight mode, the fight or flight mode, and you know how you control your adrenaline is how you pretty much like conquer your fears and like get over fear. So like I like reading on stuff like that recently. I still, you know, keep try and keep up with a lot of the like the content that a lot of like coaches like Bill and stuff put out, and you know.
Nice. I know, is most of the stuff geared towards like sports psychology, I guess? Like what you just said to me makes me think of more like someone who's bridging the gap between, he's still talking about fear, right? But I feel like a lot of that's in the context of his own training.
Or like, yeah, or like understanding humans. Like I try and like really just start reading into like why certain humans may like feel some things the way they do, or like, you know, understand like human psychology a little bit more.
Nice. That's
One,
definitely, oh, go.
like one book I'm looking to get into, I see it right on this bookshelf right here, is Sapiens.
Oh, who wrote it again?
Harari.
Who is it?
Uh Harari, the guy that wrote,
Ferrari.
yeah, yeah, so that book is one, and then you know, Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, that's another good one.
That's, I was gonna say, so any of the Sapolsky stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like I was going to confuse it for a sec because I feel like there are certain books that float around in like our circles of people. Like as strength coaches, when I say that, like
Yeah.
Sapiens is one, all Sapolsky stuff. Tribes by Junger, Sebastian
Yeah,
Junger.
yeah.
You've read that one? I haven't read it, but I've heard
I
him speak
haven't.
before.
I haven't. I'm getting into the whole reading scene again recently, so definitely want to keep up with that for sure.
I feel that. I feel like most of the stuff I do at this point is watch like lectures because I don't know. I'm not hugely into reading. It's never been my thing unless I'm super into it.
I know, you know, I want to really like read more, because I feel like it's just such a good thing to do for like your brain. So I definitely want to like try and keep doing that more. But you know, one thing I actually totally off topic, but one thing I was actually going to tell you was I had a friend, so my first ever friend in elementary school who watched Dragon Ball with me. We were like the two kids that were just like all into Dragon Ball. I pretty much haven't talked to him in like probably like 12 years. And like since we graduated, or like 10 years since we graduated high school. So the other day after talking with you like about this podcast, I like reached out to him and I was like, hey, like, do you remember like being at your house when we were like 7 years old and just like crushing Dragon Ball on Toonami and like playing the video games and stuff? And it was just like a rush of like childhood memories with this kid from like the time we were 7 all the way through like freshman year of high school. And it was actually nice to reconnect with him. So, you know, that's also something awesome that like, you know, getting on this podcast with you today and talking about how Dragon Ball impacted my childhood is got to reconnect with him after a very long time.
No, that's really beautiful, man. How was like? Did you guys leave it off that you're gonna ever end up hanging out in the future? Or
Yeah,
was it just like,
we're actually planning a time to like meet up one of these days and like kind of catch back up on life. But he and him too, man. Like we used to just always talk about it and play the video games and like spend a lot of time like, you know, together. And that was a huge part of our childhood for sure.
that's really cool. I feel like I don't think I had anyone really like that growing up. Like, I think I maybe had a couple friends. I feel like I can't really think of anyone though, because like we grew up, at least the way I got exposed to Dragon Ball was like Toonami. So like
Right.
I still think the peak of it for me, and I'll fight some people if they want to hit us up in the comments. Like the Cell Gohan Super Saiyan 2 fight is still probably like one of the best fights, period. Like I like the stuff after
Nobody,
that, but there's nothing, I don't know if anything comes close to that.
no, nobody can argue. That's arguably like where it peaked. I think that's where like Z really peaked, was Cell versus Gohan, you know. And that's another Easter egg in that, where it's like you have a kid who started off wimpy, you know, got hazed into training by like these older guys that his dad hangs out with, and like, you know, he had to really step up and like overcome his fears. And you know, he went from being this like timid like crybaby to like being like the strongest fighter in the planet, you know.
I feel like he didn't have a choice. I feel like, as I'm thinking about it too, because he gets pushed over that like threshold especially if anyone's seen it, right? Like where essentially everyone's kind of dying,
Yeah.
and then he just gets like triggered to some degree and ends up kind of going off. Um, I think that's what made Cell a really good villain too. Is like Cell was kind of, I guess, Goku honestly on the other side. Like Goku
Right.
really just wanted to fight and like be a martial artist at the top level, and Cell wanted the same thing but from a different side of the same coin.
Right. Right. And that was a huge point too, as like being like going back to like being like that scared, like that timid, shy, like doesn't really feel like he like fits in too well, like kind of kid is like I saw that and I was like, dude, if he's like powering up, like I'm gonna power up too, just in other ways, you know? So
That's really cool. I mean, it's really cool to hear you guys reconnected, especially through like this years later.
yeah, it was
Like,
completely random. I was like, because I was just thinking about it. I was like, dude, like we used to like always be at each other's houses and like collect like the figurines and like play all the video games on it. And like if there was a new episode out, one of us would be at each other's house and we'd both be watching it or something like that. And it was just took me back like all the way to elementary school because he was like my first friend in elementary school. And it was nice to be able to like touch base again with him. And
that's really cool. I feel like that's like for me, I just notice even now, like, because I'm a lot more, I mean, fuck, I have a ton of anime stuff at this point. But like it seems like it's a really easy common thread when I've met people like outside of my initial circles. Like, I don't know how it ends up coming to this in conversation, but like we'll find out we've both seen like whatever anime. Like there's a lot I feel like that are really way more popular, or like people don't talk about it as much. Like my one friend from actually we went to college together at Montclair. He was in business school with me. He was like at a bar and someone's like, oh, like he's talking to some girl and she's like, oh, have you ever seen Attack on Titan? He's like, how the hell do you know what that is? Like, or
right.
like if you've heard of One Piece was also when we were growing up and it's still
Yeah.
going, but like they're up to like 1,000 and something, 1,029 episodes or something, and the manga is still going. But like I feel like once I've found that like people like for whatever reason that's the initial thing that we connect on, whether it be like stickers on someone's water bottle or we just get talking somehow. A lot of people in gym culture too just know Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
and it's like that like instantly like brings down some of the walls and it's just like, oh, we just become best friends. Like if we're gonna go stepbrothers here.
yeah. And I feel like there's nothing better to get ready for a heavy set of squatting or deadlifting than like talking about how Goku went Super Saiyan for like the first time versus Frieza. And then you just like pick up your bar and just crush it for reps, you know?
I feel like honestly, like the openings to some animes, Dragon Ball Z never had a super hyped opening, in my opinion.
Yeah, it
Like,
never.
because the tempo is never really fast or anything, but like the Attack on Titan opening is probably like Sasagero, like is like one of probably the most played song about like some powerlifters I know. Like when people Spotify recaps for the year came out, it was just people. There's one person in particular. It was just like that was like the top song out of like the 5 songs, and the other 2 were also from the show.
No, that's sick. So would you say that was your anime that kind of resonated with you as a kid?
I
I
feel
mean,
like
what was yours that kind of like you really connected with at a young age?
I feel like it was probably Naruto. Like I remember watching. I remember staying up till like Tsunami started at like 8 o'clock on a Saturday, and
Tsunami, great. R.I.P.
it
Love
it
that.
was like the ones. It was when like the content transitions from like, yeah, these are like cartoons our age to stuff that was a bit more progressive on this.
Right,
But it was like 7:30 or 8 o'clock because it was always Dragon Ball Z first.
right.
And as the night went on, it would either get progressively weirder in terms of like what was on, or it would get like heavier. So I think it was probably Naruto because I used to watch it with my dad at one point up until they stopped dubbing it in English and having it on.
Right.
But I just remember really looking forward to like I'm seeing this kid, this kind of from the opposite end of the spectrum, like someone who dealt with a lot of like that shyness, loneliness, like he's an outcast for no he's an outcast without being understood. He doesn't really understand why he's an outcast, like in that show, depending on how familiar you are with it. Like
Yeah.
he's got this demon sealed in him that he doesn't know, like, and he has no parents. He's like an orphan basically. like both his parents are dead, and like the entire village he lives in hates him. Like, so
Right.
he's just doing things to get attention as this kid who wants acknowledgement. And throughout the whole show, I mean, he ends up becoming this person that inspires a lot of people, but he's constantly coming up against the wall of like where he started is like, what can an orphan do? You have people who are far more privileged and far more prodigal in nature, if that's a word, if I didn't just make that up. But like, it's just such a good show, and there's so much depth in so many different ways. And that's what my hand tattoo is based off, his like the fox demon that's sealed in him.
Yeah, no, that's sick. I remember
So
that. Yeah.
yeah, actually, that's what most of this arm is based off of, that show. Same thing with the crow on the inside of my arm, but I think that was the show just because I align it with like watching. My dad actually enjoyed it at some points because his sensei in the show, or one of his senseis, is like a perv. He's like this incredibly like overpowered wise character that deeply cares for him. But he's like, I guess imagine having like a perverted single father. Like that's kind of his sensei, and he's just like Naruto's constantly like roping him into like, hey, focus, like we got stuff to do, even though you're considered like one of the great three people. I think the other one, this was like I used to get up at 4 or 5:30 to watch it, was Inuyasha,
Yeah, I remember that one. I
which
remember that one. Yeah.
yeah, which was really good. I just remember it would only air like Toonami would go from like during the week, I think it was like midnight to like 6 a.m. So I was
Yeah.
waking up at like 5:30 to watch like clips of this, having very little context because I wasn't following it, but I was just like, I love the animation. For the most part, it moved fast enough as a show that it was good.
Toonami like used to play a lot of heavy hitting animes like that. Like they used to play Naruto, Dragon Ball. There's one like Yu Yu Hakusho that was
Oh,
pretty.
dude, that's a classic. I was rewatching that a couple months ago.
Like it's dark, but it's a great one too. And like, yeah, like I just remembered that was what I look forward to on like most Friday nights, like after school. I was like, oh man, like 8 o'clock, like Dragon Ball and Toonami start. Like that was awesome.
I feel like for me, I actually got out of like, was Dragon Ball something that's like continuously been present in your life, or was there like gaps where it kind of like took a back seat and then you like come back to your love for it?
There's been times it took a back seat, I would say. I think it did take a back seat. But like anytime like a new video game came out on Xbox or something like that, I'd probably buy it.
Okay.
Like right now, I kind of just got back into playing Dragon Ball Z Kakarot. It's like the RPG game that they
Okay.
released a couple years ago, and I'm just playing through it now whenever I have time. But like I always think back to those early days of like really finding a love for it, because I feel like it just built such a frame for me, when I was young.
I don't think I appreciated it as much. Like you were kind of saying with karate, like for you, I don't think I appreciated how much it meant to me when I was young until my friend's college roommate got me back into it, watching this one show that it's definitely the most over the top. Like Dragon Ball has the progressive transformations,
Right.
but this show, like it's not that it's better, it's just different. But like every moment you think they're like, oh, he's gonna fucking die, like there's like another thing, but it happens so frequently that it's just like it becomes kind of comical, like as you're watching it, because you're just like, okay, like this isn't it. Like what now? Like, oh, they're in a bigger robot. And
Yeah.
he got me back into it. Like, and also watching like Death Note, which Death Note's incredibly popular. I feel like that's like another anime that a lot
Heard.
of people.
I heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the one. If someone's like, I don't want to, they always assume like anime, there's some kind of octopus. I think anime and hentai like get tied together all the time.
Yeah. I know.
So I'm just like, Death Note, I think is like is probably one of the best shows for people who haven't like dipped a toe in yet without being like, what the fuck am I watching?
Right. Right. And I gotta give it a try too. And like Attack on Titan. I just think like from what you're telling me, like talking with you, it's like so crazy to think like no one would ever is a lot of people are like, what do you mean? Like this cartoon played this like role in your life? But I'm like, yeah, like if I was to ever meet any of those like voice actors behind the scenes, I'd probably just thank them for like given me hope as a kid to just like come out of my shell and like just grow into like a more confident dude. Like, you know what I mean?
No, for sure, man. I think they just do such a good job of portraying these things that we can all relate to. And that's what I love about it so much. Like I was almost crying last night watching this one. So this my one client, I recommended this anime to. It's called Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? Like it's got another name in Japanese that is not that, but that's like
Okay.
the English one. But it's like essentially all the Greek, most of the Greek gods chose to live down here instead of like heaven, Mount Olympus. And it's kind of like they each have families, but like the main character of that show is this kid who's like kind of like Aang from Avatar, the
Okay.
last Airbender, like this super innocent kid that has to go on this journey. And I don't think Aang runs into it as much off the top of my head, but I'm not super well versed in that show. But in this show, the main character Bell has to come to the reality of like he can't save everyone, and he's like this super pure innocent child that's having to make these decisions that like you're gonna have to hurt some people to save other people, and like the world isn't this perfect place. Like it definitely gets progressively darker, but it's shattering his idea of like what is actually like idealistic.
Right.
And yeah, there's just so few things
Sounds
like
like there's just like such like good like deep rooted messages in like what you just said. You know what I mean?
yeah, man, he's coming to like I think that's like what I love for most of the stuff that I watch. And that's like goes back to what you were saying with like a lot of the psychology stuff I enjoy reading is on personality stuff and the way we relate to like our upbringing, or the way our upbringing impacts the way we relate to the world. And like I think all of that is present in everything. It's just like anime is an easy medium for me to be like, okay. And I think it's also like I don't know how much of this is like a reach. Do you ever heard of Carl Jung?
Yeah.
So like there's a lot of things that like we don't know why it makes sense, but like people will write these stories and Jung talks about like they're the archetypes of things. Like it resonates with through consistently throughout history with us. Like we don't know why these things work together, but like in the story, it's like, these things work. And I feel like people who write anime or have done manga, like there's definitely a lot of their own life's journey reflected in the stuff they're writing, but there's a
Right.
lot of stuff that they're probably like somewhat maybe unconsciously too putting in there that is deeper than they realize in the moment. And I think that's what makes it so good.
Yeah, man. Like that's a great point. Because I feel like in order to write some of these like like because there's a lot of, especially in anime, a lot of the plots are very deep and in depth. So like I feel that a lot of these writers probably experienced some of these like themes that were in there, and they had to just like this is like their way of kind of telling a version of their own story almost.
Oh, for sure.
That's just art in general, right? Like you could take like a story and like illustrate it however you want, right? So
No, I think you're 100% right, because one of my favorite, well, it's a webtoon, so I don't know if that'd be a manga, is called Tower of God. They made 12 episodes, and then I was like, I was so hooked. I read the other 496 at the time. They're up to like 500 something. But like
okay.
the writer constantly takes like hiatuses for his own mental and physical health struggles. But
Right.
as I was reading this, it was like watching a movie, like in the amount of like excitement, animation. I mean, at times like sadness. Like, and I'm reading this and I'm like, there's no way some normal person who's like lived, a super sheltered life, whatever that means, like could write this. And then like once I learned like it literally hurts him to draw certain parts of the thing, but he just won't stop like
Right.
putting this out. I'm like, okay, like that makes sense. Like no one who hasn't been through their own deal of shit could be able to write this.
No, I agree 100%. And that's probably his way of kind of like using it as an outlet. Like we talk about in the in training, we talk about using training as an outlet, and that's probably his outlet. And speaking of drawing though, you've been crushing some of that artwork, dude.
I appreciate that, man. That's honestly so that's like so I grew up like Yu-Gi-Oh was really big for me because that was on regular TV, not
Yeah,
Toonami initially.
and 11 with Pokemon on Saturdays.
I mean, OG Pokemon was the shit. I feel like
Yeah.
if I went back and watched, which I plan to, some of the original movies, like Mewtwo has some existential lines. Like someone else the other day, I think I saw something and it was like the dash, and then it was like Mewtwo. I'm like, was this in there? Like, I don't remember that at all.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so I grew up drawing a lot of that kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh, that kind of stuff, Pokemon when I was, and then I stopped doing art.
Same here, man. And that's something I think you and I talked about before. Is I haven't drawn in a very long time, but there's a point in time in my younger years, anytime I would draw, it would probably be something like Dragon Ball looking. You
I
know?
I haven't done a Dragon Ball type one, but I've definitely done Goku Gohan like a bunch of times growing up.
Yeah.
I think actually to go back to like to bridge this to some of our training stuff, like I'm better now because I think I have like the stiffness and coordination that I didn't have when I was younger.
Oh yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, some of it's a skill too, right? Like, so I think if you did it long enough and you came back to it now, like you'd probably be better than you were initially, maybe when you were younger, if you then like put a little bit of like refresher work in. Because for me, even though I've taken these like massive hiatuses, so I think I stopped when I was in probably 6th grade, and then I picked it back up when I was in like college, I think, like right around probably around the time me and you met, and then I dropped it back off, and then I picked it back up maybe, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, on and off. But like I'm better now than I ever have been, and I've had these massive gaps in between like the time I've spent doing it.
Yeah. Speaking of Dragon Ball, you kind of have a Dragon Ball shirt on right now, don't
Yeah,
you?
so I was literally like, I was like, what shirt do I want to like wear? I was like, I don't have to wear an anime shirt. And this was like chilling on my floor. I was like, I just done washed. I'm like, I'm gonna grab this one. So this is this one group, Ozaru Gain Society.
Yeah.
So on the back, I think it's so it's like the kanji for big monkey
Yeah.
is what it is. So these guys I knew through powerlifting, and this was like their team's logo, and they're also Filipino. So I think that has something to do with like the
Yeah.
outer parts of this circle or crest.
Right.
But I was like, this is the perfect shirt to wear for like chilling with Ricky.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But like back to the drawing thing. Sorry, I like cut
No,
you
no,
off.
no, dude. This is exactly what I want this podcast to be. So good.
But back to the drawing thing. Like I was watching you do your shading stuff the other day, and like that was something I was always so bad at, was like shading. For some reason, I can never figure out shading to save my life.
I feel like it's like I'm really like, yeah, I think there are still things that I feel like if you see the video, like what helps me, if it's like, is this the one the other day with the colored pencils, or is this with like the marker?
Well, first of all, those markers are sick. I've never used one of those in my life, but yeah, like I guess like back in the day, like when I was like trying to figure out colored pencils, like I could never figure shading out at all.
Colored pencils are so different because like, so I just bought like a set of 150 the other day, and that's what I'm experimenting with now. But like what it is with those is like, I think it's honestly so much, part of it is so much patience and layering. Like you
Right.
need to manipulate pressure, which like I'm not good at. I have two settings, which is soft and hard. Like
Right.
there's
Right.
no middle where it's like a gradient. But like it's definitely like I'm still experimenting with them so much, but definitely the quality of the tool makes a big difference. Like the ones I got are called Prismacolors, and there's a couple other companies that make really good ones. Like the wax is different, the paper also needs to be right.
Right.
But yeah, dude, like I was gonna say my weakness is hands. Like I can't draw hands to save my life. Like
Hands and feet are definitely hard.
I
Like,
feel like the feet are easy. The feet are easier. The hands, I'm just like, how do I get a thumb in there? Like
right.
it's not my thing. Faces, I'm pretty decent at.
Yeah, faces are always good.
But
Yeah, there's like extra limbs, like the hands, like the hand positioning. Because sometimes I remember I would draw like my drawings would be like okay, but as soon as I got to like the hands, it would be
yep.
like anatomically incorrect, just like terrible.
So for me, what that looks like is I can crank through like the body, the neck, the body, the hair pretty easily. Like maybe out of an hour if I'm drawing, like that's like maybe 20 minutes. And then the rest is me fighting to draw the hands and other aspects correctly. I'm like, the forearm's too big. Now the forearm looks like a sausage. Now the
Right.
forearm looks like a string. And it's just like me constantly going back and forth these different things.
You're just erasing and redrawing.
I literally just got an electric or like a powered eraser because I think it's gonna make it cleaner. But typically that's my other flaw is like you talk about our meathead tendencies and other
Yeah.
tendencies. Like I just press the pencil way too hard. So like when I go to erase, I'm like, there's literally fucking indents in the paper, and I'm like, damn it.
Too much. You're IRing too much to erase your drawing,
Oh
dude.
my god, dude. My favorite thing I think with like what we do is like we can joke about like our like some of our career aspects, like because we're far enough in it. But like Connor and I do that all the time at work too. Be like, you're just gonna insult each other with like gait related comments. Be like, yeah, nice heel strength. Like,
I know, like it's always like who was it joking around with the one time, but I was like, yeah, like compressed too hard, picking up a cable and like totally just screwed my back up.
I mean, that's what Bill says it is, right? Like you run into issues supposedly because you run out of room and you're still trying to you're still trying to compress what you've run out of room to compress.
Right.
So for anyone that's listening from context, it's like having your volume turned up to 10 and you just keep trying to twist it, but there's no 11 and then the knob just breaks off. It's like, what happened? It's like
Pops right off.
you compress too hard. You don't go too far.
Oh my God. Yeah, story of my life. Just always compressing, compressing, compressing.
I feel like I told people during peak quarantine, I was an alligator. Like I was like, I had about 20 yards or short bursts of power. And then other than that, it was like, nope, he's done. Like I'm out for the count.
And also like in those 10 to 20 like yard bursts, if you're feeling like in your neck or like you're feeling your shoulder and just like trying to like hold on for dear life, that probably means you're compressing too hard on that, or, you know.
I don't even know if I was aware of half that stuff, honestly. I think I was just like trying to go so hard. I was feeling everything.
Dude, yeah, the first sprint I ran over quarantine was like I pulled both my hamstrings
I
on rep
remember. Yeah, I
on
remember.
rep two. And then luckily, whatever, I was like just lifted and then
So
tried it again.
so off of lifting, I feel like we can go with like so we have these peak moments in anime, right? That are like the highlights of the show. Like we were saying, like certain fights, like even the Android series, which is within the Cell stuff.
Yeah.
Like what was for lifting, like what's one of your favorite memories or like most notable lifts and like the experience of that?
Um, it was definitely like picking up like it was definitely deadlifting like the fives on a trap bar one time. Like I'll never forget it. It was just like a super like it started off really slow off the ground, but then like as I cleared like the bottom of my shin, it just like just flew right up and like just dropped it right after. Like it was awesome. Or like any of like the rebel days where it was like your AMRAP days where you have like 4 plates on and you're just gas pedaling 4 plates. Like there's nothing like that where you're just going for just reps at a time, you know?
What were like how old were you and where was the first like 500 on trap bar that you ended up hitting?
Oh, it was at the end of my triphasic block at Parabolic Little Falls.
Damn. So
Yeah.
this was when we were in college.
Yeah, I was like 20, I was like 23, 24, I think. So yeah, it was like the like right as yeah, it's pretty much like I think it was like the last phase or something, and we were just hitting some singles, and I was just like
Wait,
that.
you were 23?
Yeah, I graduated when I was like 24. So I'm 28.
Oh, okay, okay. I was like confused for a second. I'm like, wait, maybe I'm thinking Ricky's like way older than I think he is.
Oh yeah, no, I'm 28. So I graduated college at like 24.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. I was gonna say because we're about the same age. Like I'll be 28
Well,
later this year. That's why I was confused.
yeah, yeah. So that's probably like one of like my most memorable lifting moments. But what about yours?
So probably like fucking horrible 315 deadlift, which was like incredibly cat backed. It was my profile picture at like one point when I was in high school. And it was at this gym called it was Steve Tiley Fitness. So it was this British bodybuilder who it's actually right where Iron Culture is. It was the original gym in Iron Culture
Okay.
in Jersey, for anyone that's listening. So he opened this gym. He was this huge dude, super good, super nice dude. I actually ran into him like 3 years later. And I was in this gym and I just remember like starting to deadlift. So I was quarter squatting. I was doing like, quarter bench press because I didn't want my shoulders to go bad, air quotes. Like, and then I was deadlifting and it was just terrible. But I remember because of the way I was lifting consistently and also the way I'm built, like I just got to 315 pretty fast. So it probably didn't take me more than 3-4 months. I remember it was fucking grindy as shit. I had like one of those tapered belts on, like that a lot of us start with. And then I just remember like I probably was only feeling my back. Like I basically did a straight leg, incredibly flexed back 315, but getting it up, like that was the first milestone that I'll just probably never forget because it's such a ridiculous amount of weight, I think, in the grand scheme of things for most people.
Yeah.
Like, especially when I started training, like I would have never told you I'd ever deadlift 500 in my life. Like, even I thought it was like reserved for these people, or like, you had to be X big to be able to move Y weight. Like, because I remember that was like, I've said this on a different podcast, but part of what like really got me going, I think, was someone told me I would never like deadlift 405 without gear.
Oh
And,
yeah. Yeah.
and I was in high school, dude. So I was still super shy at this point. I had started training. And I think that's honestly what really gave me the confidence, physically at least, to be less in my shell. Because I was like 120 dripping wet, like as a junior. And then I think by like the end of junior year, I was probably like 146. And by the end of senior year, I was probably in the 160s. But yeah, I just remember like I think I got to 405. I feel like I got to 405 before I graduated high school. But like I just remember like the time I hit 500, I was just equating it to parts of a car. So it was like, all right, 1/5 of a Honda Civic, like it just
All right.
progressively was like, I was like, this is just getting. And then I even watched people the other day, like Sean Noriega was deadlifting like 700 pounds for a smooth single, I believe. If not, yeah, I think it was a single. But like, I just can't fathom how far the sport's come and how much we can actually achieve as people. Like, it's mind blowing to be like, this is physically possible.
Yeah. And it's like it's incredible. Like even watching guys like Steve Tripp,
Oh,
like
dude, Steve's the meat horse.
just just like with the utmost confidence, right? Just like slaps over 800 pounds on the bar and just drives his feet through the floor and it just goes. Like I get so pumped up to this day watching him lift, like before I go do something. Like given I'm not doing the same type of lifting right now, but I'm like, man, that guy just had a really great day today, just driving that weight up like that, you know?
No, it's still hype, man. I think something we could maybe talk about that would be really cool, especially because I know where you train and I've trained at Ray's gym before, is you want to talk about like what it's like how much environment matters. I guess like how you feel training at like the war room, and the fucking name itself like implies like some stuff right there and like helps get you in the right mind state. But like that, or even training at your sensei's like dojo, if that's the correct way of calling what his
Yeah.
place,
Yeah.
like versus if you were to go to like a YMCA. And I'm not saying a YMCA is bad, like, but just like for you, right? Like, what is that environment? What is the difference in environment? Like, how does that change the way you're able to show up in the gym?
Yeah, like I think environment plays a huge factor, right? In terms of just like how you train or like how you're gonna perform. And the environment Ray has built at the War Room, it's absolutely incredible. Like starting from the community to the facility itself, it's like super. So like, you walk inside, you got all like, first of all, the equipment's amazing. It's all prime. And then you got like 90s hip hop blasting on the speakers. And, you're just in a community where everybody is just really just trying to level up in terms of whatever their goal is for that session or like that day. Right. So you have Ray, who's like coaching his clients. They're all putting in lots of hard work. Then you got like competitive powerlifters that are in there, like trying to push past their current limit, and you have bodybuilders in there. And the best part is like, I think that with that environment is everyone's on the same page of trying to be better than they were coming in, and just trying to absolutely like crush their goal and get to the next goal. And the great part about there is like, no matter what level, like you could be like a beginning lifter or you could be like an advanced lifter, everyone's there to help and everyone's there to like be in your corner. And as someone who is just finding an environment, like what more could you ask for from that, right?
For sure. I just know like in those settings too, it like unconsciously, if unless you're aware of it, like it asks you to step up too. Like if you walk into a room, like there's that energy of like, you know, I think for me at least, I've had it where there's like some timidness, but like the call to rise to the occasion, especially when I've like visited gyms really more so outside of our immediate area. But I definitely agree. The couple times I've been at Ray's place, and even like early Adelante when I was back in New Jersey, like we had a cruise of people, like we'd see the same people at the same times. The vibes were always good. And like we could like turn it on for a set, like crush weight, and then we could go back to like shooting shit or playing Super Smash Brothers because we had a Wii. It's probably better you guys don't have a Wii, but
No, man, like exactly. And the really cool thing to see is like people from like different training backgrounds or training experiences coming together and being able to do what they're doing and like feed ideas off of each other. Like the other day I was there was a power lifter, a bodybuilder, and a strongman guy training there. And then I was training there, and like, we were all doing something different, but we were able to be like, hey, like what's that like what's that breathing drill you're doing on the ground over there? Like what is that doing right now? And like, I was maybe asking him like, is today like how do you structure your strongman days? Like, do you have like more skill acquisition days and then more like capacity driven days? Like, how does it work out? And it's just really good to be in an environment like that where you could just talk to people and like learn just by watching and being there.
no, it's so much healthier than I think what a lot of places could have, like, or are possibly in some situations. So I feel like I've definitely been in, I know of places that are definitely very like, if you're here, you're in this lane, or most people only do this type of training. And then it's
Yeah.
like anything else is like, why are you doing? Because breathing stuff gets made fun of, right? So much like until people do it and they realize how much harder it is than what it looks like.
Right.
Like, but there's utility in everything is like what I hear from like, or at least people have the curiosity at Ray's gym that you guys can have a civilized conversation without someone being like, that's fucking stupid.
Yeah, no, like it's just a great place to train and just like to talk to people who are just super invested in training like you and I are, right? Like, I even though I don't do it full time now as a career path, like I'm still into the nitty gritty of like understanding like what things work, what things do what, and just like super just all in. And that's the best way I could describe the war room. It's just like an all in stand up place, and even like even watching Ray train is just super inspiring because he runs a business, he coaches clients, and at the end of the day, he still slaps on 650 on a bar and just moves it. You know what I mean? Like just overall, just that community is awesome there.
I think that's what helps too so much for like from Ray has the gym, but Ray also walks the walk. Like
Yeah,
Ray's done bodybuilding, he's done powerlifting, like you said, he's constantly there. And Ray's a fucking good sized dude.
yeah,
Like so it's like it's a lot easier to also feel, yeah, you see the owner getting it in after doing all the other things he has to like grind through in his day to day to like run a business, have clients, like
yeah.
own a gym.
Because he's going to be
Like,
competing soon too. So he's prepping for a meet as well. So it's like, just being able to see him when I get there at 5 something, 6 o'clock, coach, do admin stuff for the gym and then get underneath the bar and just like crush it. It's like, it's super inspiring from him to like see that. And
yeah, dude, I'm sure he basically lives there, I'm sure. And then Ray also commutes from like New York, I think, right? Is he still
no,
in New York?
he lives in Jersey now.
Okay, he lives in Jersey.
He lives in, yeah, he doesn't live too far from the gym now, but
Nice.
um,
Okay.
yeah, man, it's just the vibes in there are sick.
That's what I feel like every time I see it. And I know like even my one friend Carl has like his whole group of, I'm sure you've met Carl at this point.
Probably at some point, probably.
But Carl,
Avalon crew.
yeah, but he trains mainly, I think, at the War Room now. But like Carl has like a lot of the people he coaches and a lot of people who are close to him in there that are powerlifters.
Yeah,
And I just feel like they're just always, like you said, putting in the work every time I see it. And I feel like that's what I think of the second I see like Ray's gym on Instagram, like that, the attention to detail and like building the place, because
yeah,
it definitely is like it's immaculate, I would say. And like I think for like we both work in this industry, right? So like we know like what equipment costs, which is ridiculous even before COVID pricing. Like, but
yeah.
like he's bought the top-notch stuff. Like there's not, it's definitely not one of those gyms that like you're like, oh, they bought this on Craigslist. It's like, no, like this is like I had to read the instructions on the Prime stuff. I knew what it
Oh,
was. The machines are way easier than the plate loaded stuff, and it's still not hard,
I
right?
know.
But like I was like, holy shit, like I'm seeing this in person, which
Have
was
like the 3 resistance setting on
yep.
there. It's so, yeah, it's incredible, man. And just being there is it's so awesome to like have a gym like that, and just the way that people treat it too. Like I told you before, like it's 24 hours. Someone will be in there late at night, but you'll walk back in the next day and like everything is just like right where it needs to be. And on top of that, like it's cool to watch when, like someone was going for a really heavy single attempt the other day, and there's a lot of people there, but people stopped what they were doing to like back this dude up and be like, all right, listen, like we're gonna get this, like you're gonna crush it, it's gonna move fast, just like grip it and just drive. And it was fun as hell. Like everyone was like shouting at this dude to get the bar up, and it was sick.
I know exactly. No, I know exactly what you're describing
Yeah.
because when I've been at Adelante, it was the same way. Like people would literally drop what they were doing for like 30 seconds to witness someone like go all out. And you could tell too, like, I mean, some people would whip out the smelling salts. Typically, there's some like pacing back and forth before they snap
Yeah,
them out,
yeah, yeah.
depending on how you get fired up for your lift. But for sure, man, I definitely think all of that just makes it such a great place to be, especially like if I'm back home at all, like that's where I'm going to go to train.
Oh, yeah.
I also now understand the Prime stuff better, taking some of the N1 stuff, like
Yeah.
where it's like, where do I put the weight? It's like, well, that depends. Like, but
Yeah, it's those machines are like so smooth, so smooth.
so I think maybe a good place to kind of end is like with your current training in the gym and your current goals with karate, like where do you see the direction of your training being going forward? And what do you see the direction of your martial arts training being going forward? So I guess your training in general to boil that down.
Yeah. So I guess training in general, I still want to keep continuing to. I definitely I have a new appreciation for like rotation and being able to like get better at rotation and being able to be a little bit more like athletic and still be able to be like decently strong at the same time. So I think definitely keeping up with that and just making sure that, no matter what I'm doing, it's towards that goal of like movement quality and those attribute bars that we've talked about before, right? And being a little bit more bouncier. And in terms of martial arts, like just keep continuing to like understand the principles that my sensei teaches me and being able to implement those throughout my training and just make it so that I developed that like that martial artist like you know to use those principles and how like each thing flows into the next and stuff like that.
Awesome, man. Well, if people are interested in connecting with you, maybe interested in training with you, if they're based out of Jersey, what's the
Sure.
easiest way for people to reach out, find you, maybe even just talk about Dragon Ball?
Sure. My Instagram, you can hit me up on Instagram. It's I don't even know how like where the underscore is. Hold on 1 second. All right, so it's coach underscore Ricky Mitra. So that's where you can find me. I usually just use Instagram as a way for me to just like kind of just like I guess document what I'm doing. So yeah, that's probably the easiest way to find me on there.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you hopping on, man. This was a lot of fun. And I know we'll
Always a
connect
pleasure
soon.
catching up with you.
All right, sounds good. Later, man.
All right, later. Thank you.